So now that it's us three, I actually did want to get into, let's see, the Airbnb for sure. And then you said something a moment ago, Daniel. About the roof.
So this happened even before you and I closed on the Airbnb house hack. Again, all my deals I've done with partners. The first deal I partnered up was with my brother. It was
Mm.
very vanilla, very like plain. It had a tenant in there. It was basically putting 20% down. You pass inspection, you just like carry over the title, go sign. That's it. You have a tenant there.
Cash flow day one.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
cash flow day one. So it was a very plain deal. And I think my brother back then was sort of like coach, like kind of like preparing me mentally. It's like, hey, like we're trying to end the year. Let's try to get some deductions here. Let's not try to make a home run. Let's try to make like a base or like a two base hit, right? Like using the baseball analogy. But just try to get there. So he had access to the MLS, so we kind of like reached out to the listing agent, and that deal kind of happened, right? And then the second deal, it happened when like like a month after I closed that deal, I had my very close friend from New York City, actually my roommate up there. He was down visiting in Florida, and we ended up being in Orlando, and I invited my brothers, and we were discussing over the deal. And from just networking, we were actually at Rodizio just having a meal, and then we decided, hey, we should just partner up. And that's what happened. We partnered up, and then my brother sort of looked for the deal again. And I like for my brother to like describe a little bit more, just because I just ran the numbers, but he was like boots on the ground trying to get it, trying to see what it was doing and like what it actually required for it to be to execute and get it through the finish line.
Yeah. Well, technically I ran the numbers. You just checked my numbers, but my numbers are always right.
True.
My numbers are always right.
Second opinion.
So basically this is a great example to show how hot the market was. So I had like, if you're an agent, you have like access to the MLS, you have your criteria, and you get like emails. So I was looking at it for like the third time, my email list of the day, and I was just going down, and then something just listed, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. It was like, I don't know, like 6 p.m. I still texted the agent. I texted with this. I have a little default text that I sent to the agents like, hey, I'm an investor. I'm interested in buying the property you have listed here. When can I go see it? And then either half the time they would either like try to schedule with me or tell me if I had a realtor. And I would always say, no, I don't have a realtor. So then they would really want me to get me scheduled like as soon as possible. But normally, so that's what happened. Next day, she said I can come in at 11 a.m. I'm like, okay, I'll be there. So it was Friday, next day at 11 a.m. She showed me the house. And I literally, after being on outside, seeing the whole house, I was like, all right, I want to make an offer right now. It's like, can you be my agent to represent me? And she's like, yeah. It's like, what do you want to offer? I want to offer this much. Write it up and then we'll sign. Literally just saw the house 15 minutes later, offer. And then I think that night, it got countersigned. And then she was telling me, like the following day, people offered 15 to 20K more than what we offered, but we were already pending. We were already under contract.
Oh, so we managed to get it in contract that day.
Yeah. So it was on the market a day and a half, if you want to call it that. Not even, like, because we signed it Saturday night, and I talked to her. She listed like Friday at 5 p.m. and it was under contract maybe Saturday at 7 p.m. Like a day into like 26 hours on the market.
I mean, that's actually a good strategy I want to talk about real fast, that other agents are going to hate me for saying. As much as I hate to advise going directly to the listing agent, it can sometimes be a strategy, because if the listing agent can represent both sides, they're more likely to push your deal forward. Of course, if they're allowed to, if the seller's given consent.
Yeah. If they let them do the transactional agent. But yeah, that's basically how we picked up both of our first two deals.
Right.
The first deal we did, we also went straight to the listing agent. This second deal we did, I think we locked it up even quicker because we went straight to the listing agent, and it was so hot. I remember when she was done showing us the property, she had left first, and I was making phone calls to like my brother and everything. I'm like, we're gonna offer this because it's just a good deal. She had a sign up front. People started to stop while I was talking on the phone outside, hey, can I see the property? Hey, can I see the, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not a realtor. I'm like, I can't show you the property. I'm sorry.
Mm.
She's like, I was like, call the number or something. I was like, it said the for sales time, but I was like, the amount of demand and that property, for those of you that don't really know the Orlando market, it was right next to Universal Studios. You
Mm.
might have heard of it. It's one of the
I think
a
I might
big
have been that
amusement.
place.
Once or twice.
Universal,
Literally,
SeaWorld, all that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's 8 minutes. It's an 8-minute drive from Universal Studios. There's a lot to talk about this deal. So just getting it, once we got it under contract, we had it the inspection. Our inspector basically said the roof is not going to pass 4 point for these reasons. It was a really old roof and it was in really bad shape.
Mhm.
So I to calm down the agent and the seller, we were like, okay, you're gonna give us a roof credit, and there were some other things that we asked for. So we asked for like a buyer's credit. So basically, for those of you who don't know, you could ask for normally a reduction in price for them to fix it, or they give you a credit at closing, so you don't have to put as much money up front. That's what we did. I think we asked for like a 7K or an 8K credit, and I think we got at the end of the day maybe like
Like
five or four, something like that. The roof, basically, the second I to ensure that it was gonna go, I was like, yeah, we'll do the roof. If we can't finance it within the time, we'll buy it cash. That's what I told the agent to tell the seller. I was like, yeah, we're putting a roof. We're gonna figure out how to get this property. Like, and then since I had the people for the roofing. So, and the roof was done in one day.
That is
So they finished in
incredible, man.
the roof was done
Those
in one day.
timelines.
Yeah, so
It's like,
it was a pretty wild like thing. Like all it was going through my mind, it's like, and again, this has been, and to kind of like loop back, this has been after my girlfriend's first real estate deal kind of fell through, right? Like we're talking about deals where, you know, single family, no homeowner associations, no HOA. She was trying to buy a condo, and condos like have, you know, they're ruled under the HOA guidelines. So this deal could have fell through because, you know, we couldn't execute on it, and
Mhm.
then basically the seller just got a new roof on the property. So that was my biggest concern. Like, how are we gonna make sure that this deal actually executes? So I think in this case, I was a little bit more at ease because we also like the listing agent was also representing us, kind of like she was able to mitigate both sides. The financing for this deal was a little bit different from the one I did earlier, the previous one I said, because that one was a 20% down. This one was 10% down because it was considered as a secondary resident. So because the owner, which was going to be the person that acquired the loan, was going to be my friend, and he's based out of New York City. This was going to be like a secondary vacation home type of loan. That was the financing. So the 10% down made it even more attractive for us. We were budgeting for another conventional 20% down investment loan, and when the lender said, because of where you are, this could be considered as a secondary residence, then we actually say, oh, we have additional cash to actually execute. So we were able to leverage up a little bit better, right? And then that's when the whole, okay, now we have more cash to actually go and put a roof on this house and make sure everything closes and everything cashes out. So
Mhm.
I was pretty stressed. Very,
I
very
gotta
stressed.
ask though, so that was completely under the table, right? Like there was no agreement about the roof. It's just like, you know, for
oh yeah,
your protection. It was just trusting that it was gonna go through, paying
Mhm.
it you guys up front, right? Issuing the permit in the name of the current
totally.
owner, right?
So basically, what we knew is we spoke to our lender, and
Mhm.
he said we can finance that property. You have no issues. You just
Mhm.
need a passport point.
Mhm.
So that's the only issue they had, passport point. So what do we need? A new roof. So that's when we went to the seller, like, just get us the roof. We'll assume that risk. If the second we pass the roof, we'll just close like we planned.
Yeah. So again, you gotta have a creative strategy, right? Like you have to pull up your creative acquisition strategy and decide. It's like, okay, pretty much everybody that was in our boat was to finance this property was not going to pass inspection 4 point. They were not going to be able to get issued a loan. Therefore, they couldn't come and play with us, right? So
Right.
the only people we were competing with were cash buyers.
How much was the roof, by the way, guys? I'm curious.
6,500.
6,500 including permits?
Yeah, the permits were like a couple $100. I bought the materials. The materials for the roof were 2,500.
Mhm.
and I subbed out the guys who actually did the job. So that's why it was so low. Like
Gotcha, gotcha.
every other quote we got for it was like 9, 10.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was expecting 10 at least. At least,
Like
man.
I said,
Again,
we were we really got
You guys are
the
hooked up.
correct. Because we were so self-sufficient, our
Mm.
agent, like, she was like calling us and telling me, what do you want me to do for you? Because I mean, usually the buyer's like,
that
hey, what's up? Like,
Yeah.
I have like
it
this
was
ton of
hilarious.
buyers. So it was kind of like, are they actually alive? Like, is this deal happening? Like they're so we were just on it, on like completely on it. Like we just knew what to do. And we had just come out of that first deal, so we knew what we were doing. The
Mm.
one task that my brother kind of like thought of to assign to the agent was like check if what the materials are there or something. What
Oh yeah, so the roof was gonna get done Saturday at 5 or 6 in the morning. You know, roofers start early,
Right.
and I didn't want to drive to the property. And she's like, "What can I do?" She was literally texting me for like 3 days. Hey, are you guys okay? Is there anything you can do? You can ask me anything. I was like, um, can you check? They said they delivered the materials Friday and the dumpster. Can you check it arrived? And then she was like, "Oh yeah, it's close to my house. I'll swing by. Send me."
Mhm.
And I told her just send me pictures. And I was like,
That's the
"Yep,
only.
the materials are here. The materials are here." I'm like, "All right, I won't waste time sending the people there." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Perfect. I don't have to do it." That's the only thing we asked of the realtor the whole time.
Wow. In this market, as you guys know, the numbers are really tough to make work. If someone needs a primary residence, do you think it still warrants doing a house hack?
To me, in my opinion, it's basically like whatever you're paying in rent now.
Hmm.
If doing a house hack reduces that number, I consider that a win.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, your primary residence, it's yours. And the way things are going, it's only going to get more affordable for you since, yeah, interest rates are 5, 6%, but that is it.
Yeah.
Property taxes don't really go up that much. They tend to go up like 2, 3% a year max. They're very stable. Insurance, maybe. HOA is the only variable out there
Mhm.
that some HOA communities think they might do like some assessments or something that could like maybe mess you up for a while. But if you're in a good area and the HOA is worth it, then you're also going to get some of the upside long term.
Right. Now, moving into the Airbnb. So, because Daniel, when we closed on the home, I don't remember. I think you guys were talking about it. However, you were more leaning towards long term, it sounded like. And then ultimately, so walk me through that.
The deal that I closed with May here in Miami, it was after we've been working for at least 6 months then, right? Like we've known each other. We were very active, sort
Mhm.
of end of 2020. We were like writing offers like in like the property's driveway, like trying to get to them as soon as possible. Like very similar to what my brother was like
Yeah.
seeing in Orlando, like 6 months later. Like we were doing this here before we were doing showings. Like
Hmm.
we would walk to a property, we're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, do you wanna offer asking? And I'm like, you think I can figure asking? Like maybe if you can, make it more attractive
Hmm.
because there was properties that we really liked and we make sure that we had like 90% of the offer drafted before like we drove away from the property because it
Right.
was that insane. Obviously those deals didn't fall through, and then I ended up partnering up with my college roommate for this house hack that we did. So we found this house and I looked at at the listing and I'm like, this is a great property. Like it had what it looked like a sort of like a studio in it, and it was not advertised as a multi-family. It was a single family. It was a 4 bedroom, three. It is. This is where I am right now. So it's a 4 bedroom, 3 bath. It's like, okay, I need to see this. Like, and it has been on the market for a while. So I followed a lot Zillow, and Zillow tells you like when there's a price change, it tells you like, oh, it's been reduced, been increased. So we saw the house. So we both were sold on it. Big selling factor is it had three separate entrances. So it had the main entrance, and on each side of the house, it had its own unique entrance. So that just means privacy, right? Because if you get smart and you section the house, you sort of like allow for people to not even walk through your main door. Why did we ended up doing Airbnb? So first, when we acquired the property, we were moving in. I had a friend who was doing like so a friend of Diana's who went to business school with her was doing an internship here in Miami that summer. And the reason that he ended up being our tenant is because he was going to be Diana's tenant. And
Mhm.
then that deal fell through, and sort of like, okay, he became our tenant because we had a spare bedroom that had its own shower, its own bedroom. We put a king size bed in that space. It has its own like little private parking with its own entrance, like everything. We just had to buy like we bought an automated lock, so just put a little keypad and they access the space. You want to have a studio, like studio style living in like New York City, like where you have, and it had a hot plate, it had a fridge, and it had a microwave. So what else do you want? And like this was someone that's going to be basically out of the studio all day,
Mhm.
and they were just going to come in and sleep at night. They just need a place to crash. So we went with a couple different strategies because we were so close to Miami International Airport. She, because of I think your previous career, like you
Yeah.
had a lot of airline, like American Airlines colleagues that could be
Mhm.
interested in like probably being here, because we're like just as close as we have a property
Yeah.
to the theme parks in Orlando, 8 minute drive. Like we're like 8 minute drive from Miami International Airport. So if you're a flight attendant or you work in the airport, like it just,
Convenient. Right.
proximity and convenience. So
Mhm.
we had that space for rent. And then what happened was one day it was like, okay, we need to list it on Airbnb. And then we basically took pictures from the actual MLS listing and like uploaded it to Airbnb as part of that.
Mhm.
But those pictures didn't have the space furnished. So there were pictures of the areas of the house that were like professionally taken. Then there were some of them that we just took with like a smartphone, right? And like it just looked like, yeah, you just have a bed there, right? So my brother was like, hey, like I have other colleagues that are investors here who he was doing jobs for, like the contracting gigs he was doing for is like, there's people that are buying, real estate here, and they're kind of hiring me to, do flooring or whatever, and they're putting this on short-term market, short-term rental Airbnb. So one day, like the two of us plus my brother sort of like went through our property pictures, and he's like, man, like what is this? This looks like, zero like appeal, like
Yeah.
so it's like we then went on and like got a actual light and like started taking pictures, and like we
Mhm.
bought better bedding, we like fixed it up, like, and it just made a great deal of difference because we were like,
I
okay, let's
wonder
try to
why.
get exactly.
I
So
want to see
first
this, by the
so
way.
we got a guy. So our first like Airbnb tenant was this guy that was from Michigan, and he like we rented it for like $50 a day. So once we added the listings and once we, like beta version of pictures that we uploaded, he booked it for a year. We were like, oh snap,
For a
he booked it
year?
for a year. And I'm like, we have a tenant for a year here. And we're like, okay, great. And then after that month happening, so the way it happens, once you get a very long term, I think more than like 40 or so days, what Airbnb does is they just chunk like your payment amount. So they don't charge the tenant the full amount at first. What they do is like they give you a piece, and then 30 days later they give you another piece, and then so on and so forth. And then like 5 days before that second payment was coming up, Airbnb is like, we've tried to run your tenant's like credit card and it's not going through. They're like, no, this and that. And then we talk to the guys like, hey, we're hearing that Airbnb it's unable to charge you. Like, what's up? Like, oh no, like they're charging me way too much for fees, like this and that. Like, like let me just like pay you myself, like give you cash, or this or that. Like I'll sign a lease for you and everything. And I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
well, if you want to do that, because this was my third real estate deal, I talked to my brothers like, hey, like we need to screen this guy. Like we need to run a credit check, run like all the due diligence that you have to do once you assume that responsibility, because you no longer have that buffer from, Airbnb. So we were trying to like play this role, and then all of a sudden when he was out of town for some time, he's like, no, I'm gonna go to West Florida, I'm gonna go to Tampa, and I'll come back once I'm there. And we were like, you know what, if you we told Airbnb, if you can't charge him, like just like null the reservation, right? And that's when we were like, okay, we're not getting any hits, like we're not getting any bookings. Like, why are we not getting bookings? Because the first day that we got it, I think we just put it way too low. We just wanted somebody in there. And it was just advice from my brothers, like, you have to price it. Like if you're gonna charge somebody $30 a night, like who can afford a $30 a night in Miami, right? Like so you want to, but you can't charge 60 or $70 a night or $80 a night, and you have like like Pixel 3 type of pictures, right? Like all these pixelated. So you have to
Right.
kind of showcase your product. So once we did a whole like photo shoot of our spaces, that's when we were starting getting like better reservations and tenants.
I have a quick
So
question, Daniel. What is rented out on Airbnb, like even where you stay when you're in town? So explain that to me.
when the property was listed, it had a space that was completely independent.
Right.
It could be considered, it could have been considered a like a completely section of house, and we could have failed appraisal, because if the appraiser would have come here and said no, like this is a completely separate unit, it's no longer considered a single family. Like
Mhm.
they could straight up just say, hey, the appraisal doesn't pass, like you're out. But
Thank you
what they
for saying
did,
that. I've been getting in a lot of arguments with other real estate agents about that. Like, no. So,
what happens is very similar to what we did to the other section of the house, is basically we didn't put drywall. We kept the door because the house and the floor plan had a what was considered like a studio space, like a workout room. Actually, that's what the floor plan sets.
mhm.
And what happens is there's a door that accesses the main unit of the house. So what they did was they locked the door, they put some like soundproofing between that, and in the other side of the frame, they just put a piece of plywood. They just screwed it
Mm,
down to the door frame.
mhm.
And I mean, if you spend 30 minutes with a drill, you unscrew the thing and you just walk through, right? Like, so I think the appraiser was able to see that it was not a fixed structure situation. It was just like, okay, there's a
Division.
door on one
Yeah.
side,
Mhm.
there's a piece of plywood in the other side, and in less than 20 minutes, like this could be part of the house. It's not like you have drywall and like like beams coming in, like
Right.
so that side was completely separated. It's like, okay, the master, which is where I am right now, it's a huge space. Like you can see, like, look, it's like that's two double beds, and you still have space to like have a bunch of stuff in there.
Wow.
And what we did is very similar to the other space. We basically switched the lock from handle to like the one you use for the key, and sort of put some soundproofing, and then we put a piece of drywall on the other side. We just
Mm,
screwed it into the frame. And we did that because since this was the master for the house, we
mhm.
had tenants in here for about a week, and they were coming in to access the kitchen, basically like our living space, which we had configured the listing for that.
Mhm.
Uh, but after that, like we didn't like it. Like we felt that our privacy was a little bit
Mm,
not. I mean, it's not that they were bad people or anything. It's just like you just have strangers coming in and out, and we were not comfortable with that.
mhm.
So it's like, okay, this space is big enough to do that, to support it, and and end of the day, that's what we ended up doing. We basically took the two spaces in the house that had in-bedroom baths, and we converted them to Airbnb studios. And
Mhm.
then my business partner and I live in the other part of the house where we both share a bath, because again, this is a 4-3,
Mhm.
and we were okay with that, right? So, and that's how we did it. That's
Mm.
how, like, that's exactly how we house hacked it.
Wow, awesome. And what's your cash flow on this one?
I would say like around $300 a month, four hundred
Mm.
dollars a month after mortgage.
And that's with you
Like
living there, you guys. That's
two guys, two
incredible.
guys, two people living there. This
Mhm.
is after two of us living there. If I were just to live by myself and I would had a roommate who was actually paying rent, I would be cash flowing more.
Mhm.
But again, like because I have a business partner, we sort of like we delegate, right? Because this is a massive house. This is like a house for family and like three kids, right? Like
Mhm.
it's a big house.
I would, and well, maybe not today. If we could go over at some point your strategy with your booking, that's really interesting. So maybe we could even do like a screen share if you're okay
So
with it.
so yeah, of course. So if
Mhm.
it happens that like it helps that I'm a geek, like I like go into every single setting. I mean,
Yeah.
just being an engineer, like I go and like I try to read. Oh, they just rolled out this new button. What does it do? Learning how to use Airbnb tool. it's to your advantage, to be honest, and it's just peace of mind. Like
Mhm.
we've integrated our smart locks to every time that somebody books, they generate a code for the guest, and then they could use that code themselves. The company that manufactures our smart locks has connected integrated with Airbnb, and now it's like every time there's a
Nice.
confirmed reservation, they generate a key code that they can use, and then after that, like I just have like a schedule message that the day, like 24 hours before they check in, is like, hey, please look at the first message you ever received after the reservation was confirmed. Your key code is there.
Between long-term rentals, short-term rentals, what's your favorite?
I am of the mind, to be honest. I like short-term rental better. My goal is to acquire another property that I can house hack this year, because this is last year's house hack. So I
Mm-hmm.
would like to acquire another property
Last
this
year's
year to
house
house
hack.
hack it. Yeah, that's how I'm doing it. Like, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, you have to be, so you're assuming more risk. Like, what if your cleaning lady gets sick? What if she can't come in? Like, then you're basically stuck with like a dirty room, right? And because I'm also risking, like putting so much risk on myself, that I have somebody checking out at 11 a.m. and there's somebody else coming in at 3. Like, I have a very short window,
Mhm.
and let's say I'm out of town and my cleaning lady can't make it. Like, who's gonna clean my space? And then I have to tell the guests, is like, hey, sorry, no, you don't have infinite rooms like hotels to like assign a different room to your
Mhm.
guests, right? So it's just, and what we want to do instead is come and do this rent by the room strategy.
So something I want to
You
quickly
just
share with you guys, I'm sorry,
mhm,
is exchange students and international students. Do we ever talk about this?
mhm.
So here are
So
my facts.
my
Yeah,
parents actually are house hacking themselves.
yeah.
Um, with the two bedroom with the bedrooms where we grew up, like they host international students.
Okay, perfect. And I don't know, here in Washington, the really cool thing is the agency that places them almost becomes a property manager. Of course, you are required to provide, meals and things like that. However, they pay by
Hmm.
the room, and so you never have to worry about eviction and things like that because it's handled by the agency. So
Hmm.
it's been very like my parents are house hacking essentially, and now I'm house hacking their house hack.
Amazing, great.
Yeah. So I mean, we covered a
I would
lot of
like to
stuff today.
I would like for you to share that with me, like offline,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
which is
for
the
sure.
platform that you or.
So I'll have to get the names of the agencies for my mom. She's actually
Mhm.
traveling right now. One of the beautiful things about house hacking is a lot more travel. Hopefully, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
and the thing about Airbnb though, like you said, is if you're not there to manage it, if something happens with your cleaner, that what do you do? What would you, has that happened to you before?
That hasn't happened yet. I mean,
Okay, knock
because
on wood.
again, I have a business partner. So
Yeah.
yo, when are you traveling? When are you out of town?
Mm-hmm.
And he's in the music business, so like he has like projects on the side that he does. So it's like, oh, like yeah, I'm like have a recording this weekend, or like I have a shooting for a music video, like this day and this day. So I'm traveling. And I'm like, okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
stay here just to oversee. Like, even if I'm staying at my girlfriend's overnight, like she's only like a 10-minute drive or something. Like, I need to have accessibility. So
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have this anchor, right? But again, it's like you're house hacking, right? So one thing for another. But yeah, I think if I'll be house hacking my primary residence, I wouldn't mind doing Airbnb.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm not living on the premises, I don't think I would, unless I have like a big team of like, 2 or 3 cleaners on call that they won't charge an arm and a leg to like come clean my house, like my
Yeah.
space. Like, yeah, once you have backup and once you have redundancy in those certain things, then yes. I
Yeah.
don't have that yet, so that's my advice. Like, I just feel
Yeah.
more comfortable with that.
So, well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, you guys, for catching up with me. It's been a pleasure having you on here. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you later.
Thank you,
All
May.
right, bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
You're like a circle that floats around.